Welcome the anointed ones. When you touch what's sacred with dirty hands, don't scream when your life starts falling apart. Because truth be told, karma ain't lost. It was just getting dressed in silence. And baby, she put on heels this time. They thought messing with you was a hobby, a harmless little game. You were quiet. You were different. You didn't fight dirty. You didn't expose them when you had every reason to. But here's the thing they didn't know. You weren't just quiet, you were classified. They were out here slandering a soul that was heavily encrypted by the divine. And now every digital receipt, every phone call, every word they whispered in the shadows is coming back like a cosmic subpoena. In fact, according to ancient spiritual systems, whether Kabbalistic, Vedic or African mysticism, those who harm the anointed often incur generational karma, not just personal. That means some of these people didn't just mess up their own lives, and they've put their bloodline on a spiritual payment plan for something they thought would never catch up with them. And now? Oh, now they're shaking, not because you're dangerous, but because they forgot the universe watches in silence and responds in surround sound. So sit tight, because in this video we're not just talking about karma. We're unveiling why your name was protected, how their downfall is divine, and what makes you so spiritually untouchable that the people who laughed yesterday are now praying for mercy today. And for those watching who still think karma's just bad luck, baby, you're about to find out that it's got perfect aim and petty timing. Let's begin. Number one. They never knew you were an initiate of cosmic law, not just a human target. They thought they were just messing with another regular person, someone they could manipulate, discard, gossip about, or emotionally wear down without any consequences. But what they didn't realize was that you weren't just some random target. They were tampering with a soul handpicked and backed by a higher order. What they did wasn't just wrong in a human sense, it was a violation of a spiritual law they never even knew they were breaking. There are people on this earth who carry energy that's not from here. They're born with a different frequency, connected to something ancient and unseen. And when others cross those people, especially with wicked intentions, they're not just being petty or cruel. They're literally stepping into a contract of consequences they didn't sign up for, but will still have to pay for. You didn't ask to be chosen. You didn't wave a flag announcing your spiritual ranking, but the signs were always there. Your resilience, your intuition, your inner light, even in dark places, your ability to forgive when others would have gone full revenge mode. You were built different, and on some level, even your enemies could feel it. That uneasiness in their chest when they lied on you, that paranoia after they betrayed you. They could sense something was off, but they ignored it, thinking their cleverness would shield them. What they failed to understand is that you were part of something larger. You were a walking test, and every person who tried to take advantage of you was actually being tested by the universe itself. The moment they plotted, mocked, or moved against you, a countdown started. Because messing with a chosen one isn't just about hurting a person, it's about disrupting divine order. That kind of imbalance always triggers correction. Now their lives are falling apart, not because you're cursing them or seeking revenge, but because they broke a spiritual rule they didn't even try to understand. They failed a divine exam they didn't know they were taking, and now the universe is collecting the fee. What they thought was a harmless attack was actually them walking headfirst into karma with their eyes wide shut. They should have left you alone. Number two. What they called weakness was actually sacred restraint. They assumed you were weak because you didn't clap back. You didn't expose them. You didn't destroy their name when you had every right to. You stayed quiet when they lied on you, gossiped and played with your peace. They mistook your silence for softness and your kindness for naivety. But what they completely missed is that you weren't weak. You were holding back a force they wouldn't have survived. You weren't scared of them. You were giving them space to correct themselves before the universe stepped in. You knew what you were capable of. You knew what your words could do. You knew that if you moved in your full power, their world would crumble. But you chose restraint, not because they were worth it, but because you refused to let them drag you into the mud with them. That was sacred discipline. They saw it as a chance to go harder against you. And now they're paying for not knowing the difference. What they thought was silence was actually divine mercy in action. You were protecting them from the consequences they were begging to face. Every time you chose to walk away, they thought they'd won. They had no clue they were being spared. The storm didn't hit back then because you stood in between them and what was coming. You were the pause between action and consequence. They thought you were broken, but the truth is, you were the break, the gap between them and divine judgment. Now they're learning the hard way. The karma they're dealing with isn't random. It's everything they asked for when they kept pushing, kept provoking, kept disrespecting the sacred boundaries around your spirit. You weren't weak. You were the calm before the spiritual storm. They read your silence wrong, and now that you've stepped out of the way, karma is doing what you refused to do. It's not just correcting them, it's reminding them who you were all along. And suddenly all that boldness they had when you were silent, gone. Because now they realize you weren't quiet out of fear, you were quiet out of power. Number 3, their karma is customized because the crime was spiritual theft. They didn't just betray you, they tried to take something that wasn't theirs to touch. It wasn't just your time, your peace, or your energy. It was your spiritual identity. They tried to copy, steal, imitate, and manipulate pieces of your soul like it was up for grabs. And in doing so, they committed a kind of theft that the universe never overlooks, spiritual theft. That's the kind of offense that karma takes personally. When you're chosen, you carry something that can't be bought, borrowed, or faked. It's encoded in your being. You have access to insight, favor, protection, and power that didn't come from you. It came through you. That's why so many people were drawn to you, yet secretly envious. They wanted your essence without carrying your cross. They didn't want to be like you. They wanted to replace you. Some wanted your voice, your gift, your strength, your anointing, but they had no idea what it cost you to carry it. What's wild is how they tried to use that against you. They watched you, studied you, pretended to admire you, all while plotting how to drain you. And when they thought they had enough of your energy, they turned on you. They thought they could wear your skin and fool the universe. But here's the truth. Spiritual roles can't be stolen. They can only be assigned. And anyone trying to forge their way into your calling ends up triggering a system of consequences that fits them perfectly. That's what's happening now. They're walking around confused, paranoid, sick, financially drained, mentally unstable, because they activated karma without realizing it. Every fake compliment, every manipulation, every attempt to use your spiritual light for their gain has a cost, and karma always charges full price. They didn't just do wrong. They tried to gain from what was never meant for them, and now every blessing they tried to steal is turning into a burden they can't carry. You didn't have to curse them. The energy took care of it. They tried to rob you of what was divine, and now they're finding out the hard way. When you steal from the sacred, you don't just lose, you get spiritually audited, and it's never gentle. Number 4, they didn't destroy your reputation. They burned their own reflection. They thought they were tearing your name down, thought if they told the right lie to the right person at the right time, they could make people turn on you. They whispered behind your back, exaggerated your flaws, and twisted your truth into something ugly. But what they didn't realize is that all they were really doing was showing the world who they are, not who you are. They weren't destroying your reputation. They were revealing their own reflection, and it wasn't pretty. The dirt they tried to throw on you didn't stick because it was never yours to carry. You stayed true. You didn't retaliate. You didn't fight fire with fire. You let the chaos play out while you kept your peace. And that decision, it saved you. Because now, as the dust settles, people are starting to see things clearly. They're starting to ask questions. They're remembering the things that didn't add up, and suddenly it's not your name in their mouths, it's theirs. The lies they told were never about you. They were about hiding their own insecurities. You made them uncomfortable just by existing. Your peace irritated their chaos. Your purpose reminded them of everything they weren't willing to become. So they tried to assassinate your character in hopes of dimming your light, but instead of dimming it, they spotlighted their own dysfunction. Now the energy they put out is turning back on them. The same stories they told about you are being told about them, and this time, people are actually listening, because their actions are finally matching the mess they created. No one's buying the act anymore. The mask is cracked, the performance is tired, and the audience is leaving. You didn't have to fight for your reputation. You just had to remain aligned. The universe handled the rest. And now, the truth is louder than their lies ever were. The very trap they set for you became the stage where they exposed themselves, all while you kept your hands clean. And the irony? They ruined their own credibility trying to ruin yours. Number 5, they thought they broke you, but they just activated an ancient code in you. They were so sure you were done. They thought the betrayal, the loss, the trauma would finally silence you. They expected to watch you shrink, disappear, or spiral into the same darkness they tried to drag you into. But what they didn't understand is that pain doesn't weaken the chosen, it activates them. When they broke your heart, they accidentally triggered your higher programming. They unlocked a version of you even you hadn't met yet. The suffering didn't destroy you, it woke you up. And not just in a mental or emotional sense, it activated something ancient within your spirit, a deeper knowing, a spiritual DNA that had been lying dormant until life cracked you open. You began to remember who you were before the pain, not just in this lifetime, but on a soul level. You weren't just surviving, you were being recalibrated. Every tear, every sleepless night, every silent scream into your pillow was code, activating sacred memory, strength and awareness that no book or mentor could ever teach you. That's what they never saw coming. They thought the suffering would make you bitter, broken and lost. Instead, it made you laser-focused, spiritually armed and unshakable. You started moving differently, seeing through people, hearing things others missed, speaking with power that hit people in the soul. Because the pain didn't just hurt, it initiated you. You stepped into your higher contract without even realizing it. And now, the universe is realigning everything around you. Opportunities are flowing, dead ends are clearing, hidden allies are surfacing. And the very people who tried to bury you are being forced to watch it unfold. They're shocked that you're still standing. But what's terrifying them now is that you're no longer the same person they tried to break. You're bigger, sharper, guided. They didn't break you, they broke the illusion that you were ever powerless. And in doing so, they activated the version of you that remembers why you came here. Now you move like you know, and they can feel it even if they can't explain it. Number 6, their karma isn't bad luck. It's the invoice for violating a sacred being. What they're going through isn't just bad luck. It's not a rough patch, and it's not the universe being unfair to them. What they're experiencing is the delayed payment for a spiritual crime they thought no one saw. The karma they're drowning in right now, that's the invoice. And the charge? Violating someone protected by divine law, you. They treated you like you were expendable, like your energy, your loyalty, your love and your spirit could be played with, discarded or twisted for their gain. But what they didn't know, what they refused to even sense, was that you were marked. There are people walking this earth who carry divine contracts, not contracts for fame or clout, but for impact, for light, for the kind of healing and truth that disrupts every form of darkness they walk into. You're one of them. And when people cross that kind of soul, there's always a receipt. They thought you were ordinary because you didn't brag, because you were humble, because you gave them multiple chances. But all of that was grace, not weakness. And now that they've drained it dry, the consequences they mocked are showing up in real time. Financial collapse, broken relationships, sleepless nights, emotional breakdowns, things they can't explain but feel. Things that no amount of distractions or affirmations can fix. You didn't curse them. You didn't seek revenge. All you did was remove yourself. And once you stepped back, their karma stepped forward. Because the divine ledger isn't emotional. It's precise. It remembers every lie, every manipulation, every betrayal they swore no one would find out about. And now, their own life is telling on them. They're being exposed in ways that feel supernatural because they are. The universe doesn't need to yell, it just removes its hand. And when that hand was the only thing shielding them from the results of their own behavior, the fallout is loud, ugly, and undeniable. What's happening to them isn't coincidence, it's accountability. They violated something sacred, and now the debt is due. No extensions. Number 7. They laughed when you lost. Now they're screaming while you rise. They laughed when you stumbled, when you lost everything. When you were silent, struggling, misunderstood and alone. Your pain was entertainment for them. They got bold with their mockery because deep down they thought you were finished. They used your low moment as a mirror to make themselves feel taller. They shared jokes, whispered slander, and nodded in agreement when others threw dirt on your name. It made them feel safe to believe you were beneath them. But what they didn't know is that your fall wasn't a failure. It was a setup for something they were never meant to understand. You were never losing. You were being repositioned. The divine doesn't rush elevation. It allows the betrayal, the breakdown, the silence, so that when the rise comes, no one can deny it. And now, that rise is here. You're stepping into power, peace, and purpose. Doors are opening that no man can shut. Things are aligning that don't make logical sense. And the same people who laughed are now panicking, not because you're shining, but because your glow confirms something terrifying for them. That they were laughing at someone God was backing the entire time. Your comeback is doing more than elevating you, it's exposing them. They weren't just haters, they were spiritual antagonists in your story. They mocked a soul that was under divine construction, and now the evidence of your favor is making their past behavior look evil in hindsight. They're realizing that while they were trying to bury you, they were actually warring against something sacred. It's not just jealousy, it's guilt, it's fear, because they know that blessings like yours don't fall on just anyone, they fall on the called, the tested, the chosen. And now they're left with that sick feeling. What if I was mocking someone God had his hand on the whole time? That's why they can't stand to see your success. It's not your wins that bother them, it's what your wins mean. Your elevation is proof that their laughter didn't stop your destiny. It just documented who was clapping when they thought God had abandoned you. Now he's exalting you in full view, and the silence on their end is deafening. Number 8. What they planted in secret is now growing in front of everyone. They really believed they could plant lies in secret and never be found out. They thought if they whispered just low enough, twisted just the right facts, and moved just sly enough, no one would catch it. But what they didn't count on was how spiritual law works. Energy always returns, seeds always grow, and nothing that's done in the dark stays there. What they sowed behind closed doors is now blooming where everyone can see it, and it's not a garden, it's a graveyard. They thought they were so clever, spinning stories, playing victim, painting you as the problem while smiling in your face. They went from person to person, watering falsehoods, fertilizing drama, hoping you'd be too tired or broken to defend yourself. But you didn't need to defend yourself. The truth has a pulse. It breathes, and eventually it stands up on its own. Now everything they did is unraveling, not through revenge, not through exposure by your hands, but through a kind of divine rebalancing that can't be stopped. The people they lied to are watching their masks slip. The ones they convinced to turn on you are now questioning everything. Relationships they used to build their case are crumbling. Their credibility is collapsing. And the weird part, you didn't lift a finger. That's the part they can't handle. It's not just that they're being exposed, it's how it's happening. Quietly, perfectly timed, without your involvement. The same way they planted their deceit in silence, the universe is revealing it in full volume, publicly, clearly, no confusion, and it's messing with their minds because they swore they got away with it. Meanwhile, you're rising, not in arrogance, not in ego, but in undeniable truth. Your consistency, your peace, your growth is making them look like what they really were the whole time, insecure people who couldn't destroy what they couldn't understand. And now, as your light expands, it casts a harsh glow on the roots of everything they tried to hide. They planted betrayal, they're harvesting exposure, and the whole world is watching. Number 9, they wanted to see you break, but now they're the ones disintegrating. There were people who didn't just want you to fail, they needed you to. Your pain made them feel powerful. They watched you fall apart and got a sense of satisfaction from it, like your suffering somehow confirmed that they were stronger, smarter, better. They didn't just walk away when you were down. They circled like vultures, waiting to see if you'd get back up. And when you stayed quiet, when you were in survival mode, trying to gather yourself piece by piece, they mistook that silence as defeat. But it wasn't defeat. It was regeneration. They couldn't recognize that you were sacred, not because you flaunted it, but because your spirit disturbed every lie they told themselves. You being chosen didn't mean you were perfect. It meant your journey came with spiritual weight and divine backup. And when they attacked you, whether through betrayal, manipulation, or emotional sabotage, they weren't just coming for you. They were throwing punches at something greater than they understood. Now the tables are turning in a way that makes them sick to their stomach. The more you rebuild, the more they unravel. Not because you're cursing them, but because everything they projected onto you is boomeranging back. They're waking up with heaviness. They're losing connections, opportunities, health and peace, not because of coincidence, but because their intentions were poisoned and now they're drinking from their own cup. What they tried to break in you became your blueprint for transformation. And now the strength you're standing in makes their weakness unavoidable. They're haunted by the fact that what didn't kill you refined you. And what they celebrated in your lowest hour is now what's exposing their inner decay. This isn't karma being petty. This is universal balance restoring itself. You, the vessel they tried to destroy, were never meant to stay broken, but they were never meant to walk away unaccountable either. And now that divine justice is at work, you don't even have to look back. Their downfall is loud, messy, and public, not because you wished it, but because they earned every piece of it. Number 10, their apologies can't stop the karma. Now, they should have respected the warning signs. Now that the chaos is catching up with them, you'll start seeing it, those sudden apologies, awkward texts, or staged concern. But it's not real accountability, it's fear. It's the panic that comes when people finally realize the damage they caused wasn't harmless, and the person they tried to break wasn't ordinary. They're not sorry for what they did, they're sorry for what it's costing them. Some of them had dreams, gut feelings, warnings. They felt it. Those quiet nudges telling them not to mess with you, the moments of hesitation they ignored, the strange resistance they felt when plotting against you. Their own spirit was trying to stop them, but pride pushed them forward anyway. They didn't just hurt someone, they violated something spiritual. And now they're trying to backpedal, hoping words can cancel what actions already unleashed. But karma doesn't operate on surface emotions. It doesn't respond to rehearsed apologies or crocodile tears. It reads energy, intention, alignment. It tracks the moments no one else saw, when they laughed at your pain, when they manipulated your kindness, when they pushed you further just to see if you'd snap. They crossed lines they were told not to cross over and over again, and now the universe is balancing the books. They assumed time would wash it away, that if they moved on, it would all fade. But spiritual law doesn't expire. Every offense is a seed, and those seeds are blooming now in their lives. Not because you cursed them, not because you exposed them, but because the system they disrespected is finally activating, and it's deaf to their regret. They thought apologies could serve as shortcuts out of consequences. But some doors once opened don't close on command. They wanted your silence while they violated you, and now they want your forgiveness to silence their karma. But it doesn't work like that. They were warned repeatedly, and they chose to gamble with sacred energy. Now the fallout isn't optional, it's scheduled. Number 11, the energy they weaponized is now circling back like a boomerang. They thought energy was a game. They assumed that if they played it smart enough, twisted your words, provoked you, gaslit you just right, there would be no consequences. They mistook your silence for weakness, your empathy for naivety, and your loyalty for stupidity. But what they never accounted for is that spiritual energy doesn't die, it travels. And the same energy they used to try and break you is now circling back with surgical precision. They knew your traumas and used them like blueprints for psychological warfare. They pressed on your wounds not to help but to control you. Your kindness was something they exploited, because who would believe someone like you could be the victim when they made themselves look like the calm, collected one? They weaponized your good nature against you, assuming you wouldn't fight back. And you didn't. You walked away instead. That's what they didn't expect. You didn't get revenge, you didn't launch a smear campaign, you didn't stoop to their level. And that's why the boomerang is hitting them harder. Because they're not being destroyed by your hands, they're being undone by their own actions, returning to sender. Every lie, every manipulation, every cruel laugh behind closed doors, it's echoing back into their life now in ways they can't escape. But here's the twist. They don't have your grace to handle it. You suffered in silence and still kept your heart intact. You went through your breaking and came out wiser. But now that they're feeling just a fraction of what they put you through, they're crumbling, spiraling, confused about why everything is going wrong. Their mind is racing, their relationships are crashing, and their peace is non-existent. and they have no idea how to carry the weight they handed you with ease. This is the law of return at work, not as punishment, but as correction. The universe is showing them exactly what they sent out, but without your resilience to buffer it. That's why it feels unbearable to them. They weren't built to carry what they tried to put on you, and now they're learning the hard way. Sacred energy, when mishandled, always comes back, but never the same way it was sent. Number 12, they thought they could touch the chosen without consequence. Now they're haunted. At the time, they thought it was funny. You looked vulnerable, quiet, forgiving, easy to manipulate. They assumed you were just another kind soul they could use, drain, and discard without consequence. What they didn't realize is that you were walking with something ancient, something divine. You weren't just nice, you were anointed. And they didn't just mistreat a person, they mishandled spiritual authority. Now the laughter is gone, replaced by restless nights, unexpected breakdowns, tension in their homes, and anxiety they can't explain. It's not guilt. They're not that honest with themselves. It's something deeper. It's the gnawing sense that they crossed a line they can't uncross. They're paranoid because they feel it. Something's off. Something's following them, and no matter how many times they change the subject, distance themselves, or pretend it's all in the past, it lingers. They're haunted, not by ghosts, but by consequences, by the energy they disturbed, by the sacred presence they violated without knowing. Every financial blockage, every toxic spiral in their relationships, every unexplained health issue, it's not random. It's the aftermath of spiritual misalignment. They touched a chosen one like it was nothing. They stepped into sacred territory with dirty intentions. And now their lives are unraveling, not because you're seeking revenge, but because the energy you carry is reactive when dishonored. This is the weight of being chosen. People don't always recognize the spiritual law until it touches them back. They mocked what they should have respected. They tried to hurt what they should have honored. And now their souls are remembering what their minds ignored. That you weren't ordinary. You were a divine assignment, a mirror, a test, and they failed it. So now the same energy they played with is mirroring back everything they dished out. They can't sleep, not because they feel bad for you, but because they finally feel what you felt. And it's unbearable. They're not just regretting what they did to you. They're haunted by who you are and what touching you really cost them. Number 13, their greatest punishment, watching you become untouchable. They thought walking away from you or pushing you out meant they won. In their minds, you were disposable. Someone to use, laugh at, overlook. They didn't see your worth because their ego blinded them. You were the one offering grace, loyalty, healing energy, protection. They didn't even understand. But they didn't treat you like a gift. They treated you like an option, like you'd always be around, no matter how many times they crossed the line. Now the tables have turned, and not in the dramatic movie-style way they expected. No big fight, no revenge, just silence, distance, access denied. And that's the part they didn't calculate. Their greatest punishment wasn't losing something from you. It's being permanently locked out of you. You're no longer reachable. Not emotionally, not spiritually, not energetically. You outgrew the level where their chaos could even touch you. You were the favor on their life, and they never realized it. When they were around you, doors opened, blessings came easier, peace lingered longer. But they attributed that to luck, or worse, to their own greatness. Now they're in rooms where the energy feels heavy, relationships feel shaky, and opportunities keep slipping, and they can't figure out what's missing. It's you. You were the spiritual covering they took for granted, the intercessor they mocked, the sacred connection they tried to reduce to just another human interaction. But heaven was watching. And now they're watching you walk into blessings they can't sabotage, conversations they'll never be invited into, and spaces they don't even have the spiritual clearance to enter. It's eating at them, not because they want you back out of love, but because your elevation confirms what they tried to deny, that you were never beneath them. You were always above their level of intention. Now they're not just excluded from your life, they're barred from the energy that kept them protected while they played with your heart. That's the karma, watching you thrive, untouched, unbothered, untouchable, while knowing they had access to a chosen one and treated it like a joke. And there's no re-entry, no do-over. That door closed with finality, and now they feel it in every blessing they can't reach. Number 14. They didn't just cross you, they crossed a divine line. They didn't just offend you, they violated something sacred. You weren't some random person passing through their life. You were a divine interruption, a spiritual assignment, a living answer to prayers they didn't even know they needed to pray. But instead of honoring your presence, they mishandled it. They crossed you thinking it was just personal, not realizing they were challenging something far greater than flesh and blood. They crossed a divine line, and the consequences were always going to be more than emotional. You came into their life to elevate them. Not through grand speeches or flashy performances, but by simply existing with a different frequency. You carried light into their darkness. You disrupted generational curses just by being present. Your energy shook things loose, exposed dysfunctions, made lies uncomfortable, and triggered every demon they weren't ready to confront.